As you sail around the sea, you may have heard tales of a legendary pirate by the name of Henry Avery. Sure, he never achieved the fame of some others out there, Blackbeard, William Kidd and so on. But boy, was he one of the most influential pirates of all time. So you may be wondering, who was this infamous privateer? And what did he do out there on the roof seals? Well, peel your eyes and gather around for a good pirate tale. Not much is known about this pirate's early life. In fact, most experts agree that he was born near Plymouth, Devonshire, England, in the late 1650s, which would put him in his 40s. Although, the only surviving letter in his handwriting is signed Henry Avery. It is not known what his real name was. There is speculation as to whether his surname was actually spelled Avery, or whether other names such as Benjamin Bridgman were in use at the same time. The first clear references to Avery are his youthful enlistment in the Royal Navy, and later that of an agent of the Royal African Company, Thomas Phillips, who reported in 1693 that he had begun his career as a slave trader. The following year, he reappeared in historical records as first mate of the ship Charles II of the British Company Spanish Expedition Shipping, which thought to enrich itself by salvaging treasure from sunken Spanish ships in the Caribbean. The crew, of which Avery was a member, set sail from England with the intention of making a strategic stop in La Coruña to resupply and complete some formalities before proceeding to the West Indies. However, the first leg of the voyage was postponed for several months. Stranded in Spain, the crew had now received their wages and began to despair. Everyone took advantage of the situation with a mutiny and the escape of the ship. According to an eyewitness of this event, quoted by Stephen Johnson in his book A Pirate Against the Capitol, once out to sea, Avery would have said to the crew of the ship,
"Now I am the captain of this ship. We have set course for Madagascar, and my intention is to accumulate wealth for myself and for the brave fellows who join me."
Those who remained on board became pirates, and the Charles II was renamed the Fancy. The island of Madagascar was tempting, not only because it was known as a pirate haven, but also because it was a good base for attacks on treasure ships making the pilgrimage to Mecca in the Indian Ocean. Before arriving there, the crew of the Fancy raided 3 English merchant ships in the Cape Verde Islands and continued their course along the coast of Guinea, where they took advantage of the Fancy's appearance as a merchant ship to deceive the locals, kidnap some of them, and sell them as slaves. During the first months of 1695, spent in Madagascar, the crew of the Fancy made improvements that gave the ship great speed and maneuverability. She also engaged and plundered 2 Danish privateers, and later a French one. When summer arrived, with more than 150 men on board, Avery set his sight on his master plan. The real race lay in the ships making the pilgrimage across the Red Sea to Mecca, specifically the fleet of Aurangzeb, the Mughal emperor who had taken the throne of India 30 years earlier. This route proved to be a rendezvous for an overwhelming number of pirates at the time. 6 captains and their ships coincided with Avery at this point on the map.
These 400-plus pirates who gathered at Bab el-Mandeb in June may well represent half of all the pirates in the world at that time in history.
Gathered in the same place with the same goal, they decided to forge an alliance under the command of the captain of the Fancy. Henry Avery went from commanding a ship to commanding a fleet. After a few missed opportunities in their pursuit of the Emperor's convoy, the pirates managed to seize the escort ship, Fas Mahamadi, and the more than 60,000 pounds, equivalent to $5 million in today's dollars, in gold and silver it was carrying. Days later, they attacked the Emperor's flagship, named Ganji-i-Sawai, which in Persian means excessive treasure. Estimates at the time were as high as 200,000 pounds. However, the pirates were not satisfied with the riches they found. Subsequently, Henry Avery had boarded the ship owned by the richest man in the world, the Mughal Emperor Abu Muzaffar Muhyiddin Muhammad Aurangzeb Alamgir, who also ran an immense state apparatus to rival any government in Europe. According to survivors, after boarding and taking control of the ship, the pirates began murdering and torturing passengers to force them to reveal the location of parts of the treasure. they also raped several female passengers on board, including relatives of the emperor for days. I know, we are far from stories of pirates of the Caribbean. When the Genji Isawai arrived in Surat, the news was met with anger. The pirates had not only stolen the emperor's wealth, they had also raped his women while they were performing the holiest pilgrimage of the Muslim faith. They had not only committed a simple crime, but a sacrilege. Their actions were even interpreted as an act of war. In the aftermath, Emperor Aurangzeb responded to this event by arresting senior officials of the English East India Company who he believed were conspiring against him. For the company, the first joint stock company in history, which had made a fortune importing calico and chintz fabrics from India, Avery became a major threat, throwing into crisis the geopolitical stability it needed in India for its commercial prosperity. In an attempt to preserve the trade agreements, Aurangzeb was compensated for what was stolen. The pirates were promised to be brought to justice, and both the government and the company put their agents and ships into the search for the pirates, offering large rewards to their capture. Henry Avery quickly became the most wanted man in the United Kingdom, but his whereabouts were never discovered. Everyone pirates, injustice agents, met and fought for days. Hundreds of people perished, the ocean color was red, worse than the red wedding episode of God. Well, this is what we could imagine, but in reality, it was clearly less impressive than this. All that is known is that the pirates divided their body and sailed for the Bahamas. A few were found and executed, but most fled to Europe or the American colonies. Avery was never heard from again. The mystery that marked his childhood would follow him to the end.
The mists that cloud the Devonshire Buccaneer's birth are almost as thick as those that surround his death.
Explaining that the pirate became a legend of his time, a hero to some and a villain to others.
He was a mutineer, a labor leader, an enemy of the state, and a pirate king, and in the end he became a ghost.
Until now, historians knew only that Avery eventually sailed for Ireland in 1696, where his trail went cold. But a handful of coins unearthed in an orchard in rural Rhode Island and other New England sites could help solve one of the world's oldest mysteries. But historian Jim Bailey, a professional hunter of colonial-era artifacts, believe it or not, some guys are really doing that in their life as a job, but whatever. At the end, Jim found coins in 2021 that he and others have confirmed are evidence that the famous pirate first made his way to the American colonies, where he and his crew used the loot for their daily expenses as they fled. The first unabridged coin turned up in 2014 at Sweetie Berry Farm in Middletown, a site that piqued Bailey's curiosity 2 years earlier after he found all colonial coins, a 16th century show buckle and some musket balls. Waving a metal detector above the ground, he got a signer, dug and found dirty money, but here literally dirty money. A darkened silver coin the size of a dime. Bailey says he initially assumed it was Spanish or Massachusetts Bay colony money, but when he took a closer look at the coin, he noticed Arabic text. Research confirmed that the exotic coin was minted in Yemen in 1693. That immediately raised questions, Bailey says, because there is no evidence that American settlers struggling to make a living in the New World traveled anywhere in the Middle East to trade until decades later. Since then, other metal detectorists have unearthed 16 more Arab coins from the same period, 10 in Massachusetts, 3 in Rhode Island, and 2 in Connecticut. Another was found in North Carolina, where records show some of Avery's men first came ashore. Though it sounds unthinkable today, Avery was able to hide in plain sight by posting as a slave trader, an emerging profession in 1690s, New England. On his way to the Bahamas, he even stopped at the French island of Réunion to pick up some black slaves to disguise himself. Old records showed that a ship called the Seaflower, used by the pirates after they abandoned the Fancy, sailed up the east coast. It arrived in 1696 with nearly 4 dozen slaves at Newport, Rhode Island, which had become a major center of the North American slave trade in the 18th century, knowing that we could arguably say that it is as well his fault. What do you think about that? Thanks for watching and see you next Friday for another video. Bye bye!